Guys, the time has finally come. I'm actually going to change out the head pipe on the 2021 Road Glide Special. Guys, my name is Rick and this is the HD Vibe channel. Stick with me today in today's video. Spend a little time as I'm working in the garage and I'm going to show you step by step how to install this Tab Performance 212 head pipe that is decatted on the 2021 Road Glide Special. And we'll get into it right after this. That's right, guys, we're going to be replacing the head pipe on the 2021 Road Glide Special with this Tab Performance 212 decatted head pipe. Some advantages to this head pipe versus some others like Vance & Hines and Cobra. So one, you can reuse your stock heat shields with this one, so they will fit right on this. So that keeps the cost of this down, so you don't have to pay for additional heat shields. So that is great. Secondly, this does have the option for wideband or the stock O2 sensors. Thirdly, and I think most importantly, what I've found on Vance & Hines Power Duals and Cobras is one, you have to move your right side floorboard out so that it gives clearance to the head pipe, which is not that big a deal, but you do have to put a spacer, the things on there. And then secondly, on the Vance & Hines Power Dual, it actually sets lower than the floorboard on the right side. So anytime you're going hot into a turn, you're getting some leans in, you're gonna be scraping that thing. And I've seen many people from the front of that heat shield all the way back have scrapes all along the bottom of that. So you don't have to worry about that with this one. This is not a difficult job. I've done two others head pipe change outs, one with the Cobra, one with the Vance & Hines, and now we're going to be doing the Tab. It's not super difficult, but you do need to take your time, follow this video step-by-step instructions, and give yourself plenty of time because this does take time and you want to make sure you walk through this step-by-step. The other nice thing about this Tab Performance head pipe is you're going to use the same clamps on the side of the bike, and you don't have to worry about a crossover because your crossover going to the left side of the bike will fit right into this. So you don't have an extra crossover pipe or a different bracket system. So you're going to be using all that stock. All right, guys, so to get started on this project, first of all, I've already done some of this. Obviously, take your seat off. You're going to take your saddlebags off, and you're going to take your right side cover off. First thing I'm going to do is actually I'm going to drop the right side floorboard. Then we'll take off the heat shields. We'll remove the slip-on, and then that will really show you what this stock head pipe looks like. Okay, so my 5/16 Allen here, and just loosening this rear bolt that I just showed you. And we'll actually remove that completely. Now I'll go ahead and loosen up the heat shields. Again, it's just these pipe clamp bolts. These are actually 5/16 heads, I believe. You can use a screwdriver, but I like to use a ratchet. So there's just a few here, down here, and then there's I think one or two here. So just kind of feel around and use your wrench and then kind of loosen those up so you can completely remove these stock heat shields. So now that I've got the heat shields off, now I'm ready to actually remove the Tab Performance BAM stick slip-on. So I'm going to use a 15mm here, loosen this pipe clamp, and then we have the two 1/2" bolts back here, the hanger bracket. Loosen that up, and then we'll pull that right off. Now that we got those 1/2" off, I'll just go ahead and pull this slip-on off of here, which it should come off pretty easy. We're going to actually get this clamp, this pipe clamp that comes from the crossover into the header. And that's actually a 9/16 bolt, and that is just a clamp that's right under here. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen that. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to actually loosen the crossover bracket that's underneath the bike here. I may have to in order to kind of work that new one on, but we'll see how that goes. So, but I'll update you as we go through to make sure you know exactly what I need to do here. I'm actually going to remove this clamp off of the head pipe here, and this is actually a 1/2". So next we're actually going to disconnect our O2 sensor. So you've got this grayish plug here, behind it's a black plug. And so one thing you got to remember is the black plug goes to the back cylinder and this gray plug goes to the front cylinder. This is just kind of routed in behind here. So that's actually the one going up to the front cylinder. This is the O2 sensor line going from here back to here, and there's actually just one zip tie here, So one thing you might want to do is actually take a picture of how this is all routed, so that when you get back to putting everything back together and you put these O2 sensors on the head pipe that you're reinstalling, you know exactly how to route these. I will disconnect these, and it's pretty simple. We're just going to push down on these quick connects, pull those out like that, and then as I said, there's just a zip tie right here. I'm going to cut that zip tie, and I've got some other zip ties, and then that will loosen these lines so that when I get all of these clamps and the flange bolts or the head bolts loosened, I can just pull that right out without any problem. Some people actually try to take these off the head pipe and leave it routed in there. The reason I don't like that is you don't want to get these wires twisted on your O2 sensors, because that could then cause issues with the bike of not getting good readings on your O2 sensors. So I like the method of disconnecting these, rerouting them, and then pulling that all off at one time. Now that we've got the O2 sensor lines freed, I'm actually now ready to actually loosen the bolts that are holding this head pipe into the heads here. So in this case, this is where it would come in handy if you have a flexible socket head on this and an extension, so you have enough room to get in there. On the front one, it's going to be a little more challenging, and I'll show you what the challenge is on that. So here we go. I got my extension. These are actually 1/2-inch nuts on here. So we're going to try to loosen this up, and you want to kind of loosen this up a little bit at a time on each side, and just kind of do it gently, because the last thing you want to do is break these bolts. So we'll start on this front one, and I'm starting the back nut on this, and it's a little more challenging because they do have this lower fairing. In retrospect, maybe I should have taken that off to do this, but we'll see. I think I can manage with this flexible socket head on here. Okay, so I'm making some progress here. Actually, believe it or not, this head bolt was actually pretty loose, and I haven't done anything to it, so I don't know if it's loosened up over time, or if even at the Harley Davidson plant. These are challenging to get to. They didn't get that super tight. So I'm off, and I'm wondering if maybe I didn't even have an exhaust leak on this front cylinder because of this. But it's coming off, and I'll get that off here in just a second, and then we'll be able to move on to the next step. So we have success. The last head bolt is off, and so we're actually now, I think, ready to go ahead and pull this stock head pipe off, assuming that that crossover clamp will be loose enough that I can actually wiggle this thing out. So we'll see. I actually put some WD-40 on that so that hopefully I can just pull it straight out of there. So we'll see how this goes. Well, that wasn't graceful, but it came out, and now I just need to free that, and the stock head pipe is off. All right, so at this point, we've got the head pipe off. Everything is loosened, but I want to show you these. These actually come in the kit from Tap Performance, and these are the head pipe gaskets that actually go up into the heads here. So ideally, you'd want to replace those. I'm actually going to choose to not change out these head pipe gaskets. These are identical to the Harley Davidson ones, it feels like. So I'm going to not change those out. Hopefully I won't regret that decision, but if you do want to change those out, you do need to make sure you get all of that out, and you just kind of use a pick, and you pick all of that out, and then you very, very gently slide these in with the flat portion. I'm going up against the head, sort of angled piece comes out so that the head pipe slips into that. So I'm actually going to leave mine in as is. I've done this on my other bikes. I've never had an issue with it. But they're there. They're in the kit if you do choose to go ahead and change those out. Here's the stock head pipe that I've got off. So this was the clamp that was clamped around here. We're going to reuse that again on the Tap Performance head pipe. I need to take these very carefully off. These again are the O2 sensors, but I believe those are 1/2 inch. And then we have these flanges and these flange little caps here. Those are also we're going to reuse, so I'm going to slip those off very carefully, and we'll reuse those, and I'll show you how those go on to the tap performance pipe. Same as if you were changing out any other head pipe, you reuse these flanges and this little retaining clip. All right, so now we're ready to start working on the tap performance head pipe. So the first thing I'm going to actually do is slip on the flange, and again, this flange has got a sort of an indent right in here, so that's going to go out, because obviously then you have this retaining clip that's going to slide in there that's going to hold that, kind of stretch it over this. Actually I didn't even have to use my screwdriver, just kind of plopped it on there, and you can see, so that retaining clip holds that flange in place, which then the bolts coming out of the heads go into here, and then your nuts obviously go on the outside of this. This kind of turned like that, I think, on the front one. Earlier I mentioned in the video that you can do wideband O2 sensors or your normal. So we're going to be running normal. So what Tap Performance actually provides is a plug to plug this wideband O2 sensor input part. So we'll actually put that in there. So if you were running the wideband you're changing out, you'd run those in here, and then they also provide a plug for the normal O2 sensor input, and you would just clamp that down. So this is the anti-seize lubricant that you need to buy. I got this at AutoZone, I think. It just is one of those things so that this doesn't, because there's so much heat, it doesn't essentially weld this plug and your O2 sensor into the head pipe, so that when you do need to remove them, you can actually get them removed. So you just put a little dab on this, a little dab will do you, and just kind of get it all around the threads, and then go ahead and thread it in, and it'll just protect this a little bit. Now that I've got the wideband plugs in here, this is actually a 3/8, I believe, Allen, so I'm just going to tighten that down. Just tighten those things up, and again, they've got that copper washer, or at least it's copper colored in between, that you put in between the plug and the head pipe. So and then wipe off any excess of that anti-seize that may have kind of squished out. You can see I've got it on my hands, turns your fingers white or silver. So now I'm ready to actually put the O2 sensor into the Tap Performance head pipe. So you do want to use anti-seize, but you want to just make sure it's on the threads. You do not want to get it on that sensor because it could cause some issues with the bike. So I would say use it sparingly, and try your best just to keep it on those threads. So now we're ready to actually put the head pipe onto the bike. So this, oftentimes what I find, this is the challenging part, and if you can actually find an extra set of hands to help you out with this, sometimes that helps, especially on these one-piece head pipes. It can be a little challenging to get these flange bolts to line up. While you're doing that, you want to make sure you get your O2 sensor kind of lines begin to route those down to where they need to be, so that they're not in an odd position and you have to pull this bad boy back off. It's sort of a constant adjustment here to kind of gently get them on there. And again, the last thing you want to do is break one of these bolts going into the heads. So you want to be very, very careful with that. So let me see what I can do here, and hopefully this will go on. The only other thing that I'm a little worried about is I may have to end up loosening up this crossover pipe, but we'll see if we can get that in there. I was able to get it off without it, but we'll see if I can actually slide everything in there and get it to line up. May or may not. I may have to take that off to get this lined up and then slide that on after the fact. So I struggled just a few seconds with this head pipe and realized I needed to drop this crossover. So I just actually took the bolt out. It was a 1/2 inch bolt in that hanger, and just actually let it sit down on the ground. I didn't even remove the slip-on the other side. It's still bolted up to the rear hanger bracket. It's not going to cause any issues or bend anything because that's a rubber gasket there. So I think that's the best option. So if you guys, I kind of skipped that step early on thinking I wouldn't have to do that, but after a brief struggle, I realized that it's best to drop that down. Okay, so now after a struggle, I won. You got to get this thing exactly lined up on these one piece. They're always challenging, but once you get it lined up, I mean, it's there, it just slips right in, and it's like, well, this should have been really simple, but I've got them on there. I've got the flanges on there. I've got the nuts on the bolts going into the heads. So that's all lined up. I haven't tightened them yet, so as you can see, it's still loose. I got this clamp on. So now I'm actually going to go ahead and reconnect the crossover pipe. So now I'm just going to actually reroute the O2 sensor lines before I begin to tighten up. So I just kind of rerouted the black one, again, back behind these little connecting points. And again, is actually going to zip tie, I believe it was right here, but that was also with the front one. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that one in. So we got the back one plugged in, and then I'm going to route the front one just like it was before. There's actually some little clips under here for routing this, and you'll feel it. It just kind of slides in there. I'm going to run this back behind the ABS module, and then I'll plug this in back here. So that's all reconnected. So now I just need to zip tie right here where the original zip tie was, and then one down here. And then the O2 sensors are all set. So now, after I've got that, now I need to begin to start tightening these flange bolts in. Now I'm tightening these head flange bolts. I'm going to do it just actually a little bit by hand, kind of alternating, so I get equal pressure on this so that it does get a nice seal. And then I get that kind of hand tight. Then I'm going to do the same up here on the front, which is a little more challenging, but I'll do that. And then once I get these hand tight up here, then I'll start tightening these down, again, equal on both sides, flip back up to the front, kind of go back and forth. And then once those tighten up, then obviously I can tighten this clamp up and begin to button all this up. So I got the head bolts all tightened up equal on the front and the back cylinder. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten up this 1/2" bolt here on this bracket. Okay, we got that tight. Now time to put the slip-ons back on. So I slipped those back on. They slipped right over these the head pipe real nice. So I'll go ahead and get this back hanger bracket tightened up. And I'm not going to tighten this pipe clamp just yet. I'm going to leave that a little bit loose until I get kind of everything lined up and make sure from a bag perspective that we've got good alignment left to right on that. And now I'm going to go ahead, and I did have to slip off the other side slip on. I would suggest if you're doing this, go ahead and just do that up front. The instructions do say that. I thought I could get away without doing that, but obviously I couldn't. So I went ahead and slipped that off. So I'm going to slip that one back on. Now we're actually ready to put these heat shields back on. So again, it's just going to be a reverse of the process, getting your pipe clamps around the new head pipe, and then getting them lined up to screw those in and tighten them up. So I'm going to go ahead and get those on, put these heat shields on, kind of do them loose and get them started, and so you can get everything kind of lined up again, just like we did when we were putting the head pipe on. We kind of did everything loose, got it all lined up, and then we tightened everything up. Same with the heat shields here. So I'm going to continue on. Heat shields are back on. Now I'm wiping everything down to make sure I get all the oils and things off. All right, so as you can see, we got it wrapped up. We've got everything clamped back on. We got the saddlebags on. The last thing I need to do is put the seat back on. And then before we wrap up today's video, I'm actually going to do some comparisons, some cold starts, some runs out on the road, and compare that to the tab BAM sticks with the zombie baffle with the stock header. And then we'll compare that to the 212 tab header, again, with the zombie baffle slip-on. So we're going to be comparing apples and apples. The only thing different is going to be the head pipe. So that's it, guys. We put on the 212 Tab Performance header. Again, goes on just like the stock. Still looks like stock after you put it on, and you can still use your stock heat shields on this. So guys, incredible sound coming out of this. I actually had a guy comment yesterday when I was riding. I put now about 120 miles on these pipes. He made a comment, he's like, what the heck did you do to your bike? It sounds incredible, it sounds mean, and it sounds visceral. So that's what you're gonna get with the No Cat head pipe and the Tab Performance 4.5 BAM sticks with the zombie baffles. Guys, if you like this type of content, please give it a thumbs up. Also consider sharing this with your friends. Leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think. Put your headphones on, put your earbuds in, listen to the sound clips of this incredible sound coming out of this Milwaukee 8 with the Stage 2. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. I'd really appreciate it. Hit that button right down here. And when you do subscribe, leave a comment down below saying I subscribe, so I can personally reach out and thank you for supporting the channel. Also, don't forget to hit that bell icon and select all, so you're notified every time I do put out new content. And also go back and see, I have over 200 videos on tips, tricks, rides, reviews, and installs on these Harley Davidson touring motorcycles, which I feature this 2021 Road Glide Special, a 2021 CVO Street Glide, and the 2023 Street Glide ST. And with that, guys, I want to leave you with this thought. Life is short. Get out and ride the bike. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.